Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. I was always a groupie, of your institute and was always following the work. And was secretly hoping that somebody might be one day. So I'm so happy to be here and see the beautiful premises that you have and so many different people working on different topics, interdisciplinary, fantastic. And in a beautiful North Shopping, which is like really conducive to work with this nice, not nice, but kind of gloomy weather, but it's for work. Anyhow, I'm talking about our various work on dynamics of beliefs networks today. And this is an important thing to understand because beliefs that we have about different issues will affect how we individually and collectively behave and the choices we make. Just to kind of set the stage, when I say belief, I'm sorry to many other disciplines in the room, including my own. I'm originally a psychologist, but we are having a pretty inclusive view of what a belief is, from assumptions about state of the world, views and opinions on moral issues, cognitive aspects of attitudes. So all of that we are kind of putting into one big bucket of things that somehow get updated, probably with a somehow similar process. And because we are interested in mechanism of belief dynamics in the processes, we are ready to maybe conflate a little bit beliefs and values, maybe even preference at some point, but all of these probabilistic judgments about state of the world, all of that, we are studying kind of under the same name. And we have this idea that there is some relationships between different beliefs that we have in our individual minds, that we somehow connect with others that also have these kind of networks in their minds, that we have certain representation of our and others' beliefs in our minds, and that we are trying to reduce the dissonance within our own minds and between our minds and other minds, and that results in belief updating and sometimes also in social network updating if we cannot otherwise reduce this dissonance. By the way, I encourage questions throughout. You'll see the outline there is a lot of things I will talk about, snippets of different projects. It's a potpourri. So I will ask you, Dalege, when I finish a segment, whether you have any questions. So feel free at any point to discuss it. So I'll be talking first about our models of belief dynamics. And first, I'll just go briefly over some conceptual paper that we have about analogies that we use for modeling belief dynamics that just put us in the mood. And then I will be presenting our own model that we have been developing and are still developing now and various extensions of it. And then I'll present some new work that we have on measuring belief networks, which is work in progress. So first, let's just kind of take a step back and think, how do we model belief dynamics? Who of you models belief dynamics or in any ways interested in belief update? Oh, some people, okay. Okay, so this is a complex, it's a complex social phenomenon. Others of you are working on various other things, so segregation, inequality, different aspects of social dynamics. And in life, as in science, we are often using analogies from systems that we know well to understand better systems that we don't know so well. So we can understand the structure, I don't know, an animal kingdom by looking at human kingdoms, like lion is a king among animals. Maybe atom, in very, very old interpretations, might be something similar to the solar system. Or also in older interpretation, mind can be represented as a computer. These days, it's actually the other way around. We are trying to understand computer by equalizing to the mind. Or, I don't know, fitness and energy functions are, they are explained or they're trying to be understood by analysis of landscapes and so on. And so when it comes to modeling belief dynamics, and I'm sure all in your own areas you'll sense that you're actually also maybe using some analogies from other systems, many different analogies have been used with epidemics, with ferromagnetism, forces, evolution, thresholds, some statistical procedures like linear regression, Bayesian inference, and so on. And all of them are useful. They're all useful. I used many of them, but also have some conceptual baggage. And just so you know, we think it's hygienic to remind yourself every now and then, what analogy are we building on and what are the constraints of this analogy? For example, for epidemiological models of belief dynamics, these are very simple models where it is assumed that the belief spreads like a pathogen in a social network. It's nice. So it's just this one belief. You can calculate now how likely is it to spread, what's the susceptibility of the person, recovery rate, and how this all depends on the social network. And that's very useful. On the other hand, it then brings some certain assumptions, like belief is not exactly as pathogen. If you encounter a pathogen enough times, you'll probably get infected, but maybe the beliefs you'll just have this backlash effect. So there are some things where the models will not apply. Also, the assumption that it usually acts in isolation, but we are actually having a network of related pathogens, if you wish, that are continuously around us and attacking our network of beliefs. That's also usually not implemented in these models. And ferromagnetic models from statistical physics, I use them as an analogy. Here, the idea is that beliefs align with each other like spins in a crystal lattice, so they all point in different directions, but the idea is that the system wants to reduce the energy, and it wants that the spins are trying to align themselves to other spins and maybe to some internal magnetic field that they have, or maybe to some external magnet that is all pulling them in the same direction. And then with a very few equations, you can model what would it take for such a system to reduce the energy. And that's kind of nice because although the first impulse of a psychologist is to run away screaming, but actually it's you can because it's so simplistic, right? And we expect that it's such a much more complex phenomenon, but with just a few equations, you can model quite complex processes. And there are interesting mappings. So spins are, of course, like our beliefs, and couplings between them are like our social relationships. And energy is actually could be represented as a cognitive dissonance. And temperature, which is an important part of this models, can be represented as some kind of attention to the dissonance that we are feeling. So all of that, then once you have that, then you can think of survey questions or other measures of different parts of these models to ground them empirically and see how far you can get with such a simple model. But the problem is that, of course, everything is premised on this idea that we are always trying to reduce dissonance between our beliefs. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we like to have certain dissonance, especially we as scientists are in the business of maintaining the dissonance, always criticizing ourselves and others, always being in some kind of intellectual conflict at least. And then, of course, there are many different strategies and finer mechanisms that are not. Or take, for example, the threshold-based models of belief dynamics. So these are very popular. Basically, they say it's a very powerful idea that I will update my belief based on another person's belief only if the person is similar to me to a certain extent. If it's a certain threshold needs to be passed. If not, then I'm basically unaffected by the person. And that's really nice because it can, just by changing this threshold measure, you can get various patterns in the population from polarization to clustering to complete consensus. But then, of course, the whole threshold idea is you know it from neuroscience. I mean, there are actual some threshold in biological systems. But here it just kind of puts the problem to a different level. Now we need to explain where these thresholds are coming from. Do we always have the same threshold for everything, or do we have it for different contexts? Of course we have. Of course it differs. It differs from day to day, from content to content. And then we need to still know, okay, where is this coming from? Okay, so to not go in all of the details, but just to have this, each one of these analogies is somehow useful, but it's also somehow limited. And so you will see that the models I'll be presenting are all using this ferromagnetic analogy. But yeah, take it with a grain of salt. So and we are aware of this and always exploring new things. Okay. Any questions so far? I'll just go on with showing our initial model of belief dynamics, which we call networks of beliefs. So the idea here is that we go beyond the usual models of belief dynamics, start looking at how one belief spreads in social networks, or in basic psychology would be how one belief updates. How do we become more or less environmentally predisposed or something like that? So usually it's like this orange belief spreads, is how orange belief spreads in the social network. Then, of course, in psychology and cognitive science, you have a lot of these models of semantic networks, networks of concepts, where there is an understanding that concepts in our heads are somehow interrelated. And there are various measurement methods to try to understand how different concepts are interrelated. To beliefs, it has not been applied so much. But there are these lines of work, and we want to connect this and study interaction of how my network of belief communicates with your networks of beliefs. And this is not also that there is, of course, past work already going into that direction. Some older work in cognitive science about actually having these two simple cognitions with some positive, some negative beliefs. and how they basically reduce their constraint according to some constraint satisfaction process. And then this work from Jonas Dalege, Han van der Bas, others from Amsterdam, was one of the first works to do empirically derived belief network from survey data from this ANS, American National Election Studies, which is now canceled. So they were looking at how people's networks of attitudes towards different candidates predict their willingness to vote for this. Their actual voting for those candidates. Brandt and Slegers in the Brandt lab, there is also a lot of nice work on beliefs as networks and models of that. Maddalena Laceanu, Alan Coleman, and others have also a nice conceptualization of these dynamics of individual and collective beliefs, where there are different, it's not only one layer of beliefs like our models have, but there are several layers: evidence, so the layer of facts, kind of facts about the world, beliefs, and then perceived social norms. And this all interacts in this multi-layer network. And then a great work by YYN and his colleagues from previously Vienna and now Florida about the relationship here actually between belief networks and social networks. And then the work related to the complexity science hub by David Garcia and colleagues using balance theory to understand how polarization occurs. And work from dynamical system from a different point of view. It's so wonderful how many different disciplines work on the same problem, different technologies. This model is actually very similar to ours, and we like each other and try to continue this work. This is a dynamical system model, looking at how two agents interact with some PDEs over time. And then, but what is missing is still more integration of the social networks and belief networks, and in particular empirical tests. As we also discussed over lunch, it's so important to test these models empirically, because we can now go for a beer, we'll find that, we'll invent thousands of these models, and there literally are thousands of models of belief dynamics, but how much they can describe and predict. So this is what we are trying to do. So in our model, people are embedded in a social network, and they have this internal belief networks, for example. Usually we talk about a focal belief. Usually we have so many beliefs in our head, we cannot possibly study this all. Maybe later, but not now. So we always choose some focal belief. That focal belief would be something that either we as researchers are interested in, or is something that people discuss with each other. So there's somehow a belief that we are currently focusing on, focal belief. Let's say it's climate change. And then in one head, this can be related to science, economics, politics. That's one kind of belief that we suppose in this network. And then also to social beliefs about what other people think about this. And then in another head, this can be related also to economics and politics, but maybe also to conspiracy theories. There are different personal beliefs that this person has, and then also this person has social beliefs. And then the connection between them here is modeled in a very impoverished, very simplified way. The connection is just a direct link between what this person perceives the other thinks and what the person actually thinks. It's actually just a correlation or validity of this person's social belief about this person's actual belief. Note that this is so it's some kind of, it is kind of a measure of actual influence or actual even represent or a perception that the other person is there, or how much this other person actually influences this social belief. Note that there is no liking, similarity of two people. Anything else could be an addition to the model, but this is now very simple. It's just, okay, this person has some influence. There is some correlation between what this person actually thinks and the social belief. And this we call external. To this person, these are external beliefs. And now we want to have a couple of simple equations to just do this computational model. And we are guided in psychology by theory of cognitive dissonance, the old idea that we are reducing the dissonance. And in particular, that depending on the felt dissonance in different parts of these networks, beliefs will get updated. And I mean, note that, of course, we have thousands of beliefs in our heads. Many of them are contradictory. We are not updating them all the time to fit. We focus, the idea is that we really believe in this model. Always we focus on parts of these networks at a time, depending on the context or what we are talking about, what we pay attention to. And then we kind of locally update so that we reduce the dissonance in this part. So this felt dissonance is very important. And now, now we want to model it in a ferromagnetic statistical physics framework. So just to introduce some notation. So now we are replacing the rest in these personal beliefs usually with squares and social beliefs with triangles. And then the whole person is a circle. And then this, they're connected like this in the social network. And now we can, and so we have this, so that's squares and triangles. So, and so now we can put in some notation. So beliefs are this BI, these are my personal beliefs, BI, BJ, and they are related in some way. And then there are social beliefs, these triangles, they're also related to personal beliefs. And then there are this other person's beliefs, and then there is this link between this person's perceived belief and the actual belief. And then, so we have again personal, social, external. And now we can write down what would be the dissonance in these different parts of the network. So in the personal part, the dissonance is just how much this focal belief fits or not with the other personal beliefs. So multiplication of all BI, BJs, they are all on the scale from -1 to 1. Like if the scale is in the survey 1 to 7, we just put it from -1 to 1. If it's whatever is the scale, we put it to -1 to 1. So it's in physics, in statistical physics, something like pot smalls, more fine-grained versions of easy models. But there is no philosophy here. It's just the multiplication of this multiplied by the link between them. And then the social dissonance is how much my focal belief about climate change is in accordance with what I think other people think. And the external dissonance is this, how much what I believe about other person actually corresponds to what that other person thinks. And then I will know it to the extent that this link is positive. And then in physics, this is usually written in this kind of energy. This is like an energy equation where this dissonance, we want to minimize this dissonance, or we want to minimize the energy. And so now what is going to get updated will depend on the attention that we pay to these three dissonances. Sometimes we pay more attention to personal dissonance. Sometimes we just want to be true to ourselves. When that happens, this theory does not show, but we assume that sometimes it might happen, that personal dissonance is somehow important, and maybe because that's another extension to the model, maybe because the belief is central or important to us, and I just want to be true to myself on this belief, and everything needs to accord to that. Sometimes we pay more attention to the social dissonance. You just want to fit in. I just came here, you know, if I'm about to spend the winter with you in this winter wonderland, and maybe we'll need help with, you know, getting frozen somewhere, I will try to endear myself to you and be nice and conform. And so I'll pay attention to this social dissonance. So I'll try to kind of adjust my beliefs to what I perceive are beliefs of the group. And then the external dissonance is, okay, do I care what this other person really thinks? You know, sometimes when you like a certain politician, for example, and they say something racist, and then but you really want to keep on liking this politician, then you can say to yourself, oh, they were just joking. Or you can disregard, or you can just not listen to some parts of the message that kind of is disaccord with that. So that would be the attention to this external dissonance. And sometimes we just don't have the opportunity to hear what this other person thinks. And sometimes we just don't communicate with the person. So basically to have this attention to external dissonance, we must be able to talk to the other person. Yes.
I have a question. Do you update also the networks, basically the social networks?
It's the next part of the talk where we are starting to work on that. And actually, we are still not even updating social networks. We are starting to notice here. So let me show you the two updating equations. We are only updating beliefs. We are not even updating the links here. Next, we are going to update these links. And we are still not having a model for social network updating, which is another is. Okay, so now we are doing this updating. There are two updating functions, and they will then change this whole network from time step to time step. Basically, this belief will change to the extent that the change in this belief will minimize both personal dissonance and social dissonance, each weighted by their attention to it. So the actual dissonance or potential dissonance or personal beliefs will be weighted by attention to these beliefs and social beliefs. And then, depending on that, this will change. And then the social beliefs will be updated based on how much this change would minimize the social dissonance and external dissonance, again weighted by their respective attention. So that's the whole thing. And now what? Now we want to see whether any of these assumptions, predictions can be seen in the data. And so here we conduct surveys, which I will criticize later, but we conduct surveys, one on mechanical Turk, which was large survey and cheap, and the other on super expensive USC Understanding America panel, which is representative of the American population in 2 waves. We had both participants and they had to recruit a friend. So Spain and the US together, but so we have this data. And so now we asked them about 2 kind of topics that were interesting at that time, GM food and vaccination. GM food is interesting because it's not obviously politically related. There are all kinds of conflicting moral dilemmas about it and so on. So, for example, focal belief here is it very safe or unsafe to eat GM food? Relevant personal beliefs, these other BJs, are various moral issues related to GM food. We had 12 of them. Here is an example. Is it harmful or beneficial to the environment? Is it natural or not? And so on. And the social beliefs is, okay, now think of your contact. Either in the second study, we actually had the contact. Do you think that this contact thinks that it's safe or unsafe? And then we get these kinds of networks of social beliefs and personal beliefs. Because this is now on the whole sample, we can calculate correlations between these beliefs. And on this sample level, now we can get, then we can do some partial correlations with regularization. And now you can get how are these beliefs connected, and have clear cluster of these moral or personal beliefs and the social beliefs. And then the critical thing to this model is this attention to dissonance. And so we're kind of we're spending quite a lot of time to see how could we measure this attention. And one of the things we did is that we had a cognitive load task. So people are answering these belief questions while counting backwards or remembering some number. And that kind of worked and not, and it was difficult to do it online. Somehow we're not happy with this. Then we're trying different survey questions. And we actually settled on these. So whether people just say, is it important to me that these personal beliefs are in conflict with each other or not? That's it. I mean, it's kind of straightforward asking, is this dissonance important to you? So personal is important that beliefs are not in conflict, social, and that personal beliefs and the beliefs of contact are not, and external, it's important to know what this person thinks. And we had 3 questions for each of them, and kind of seems that these are 3 different concepts. So now that we have that, now we can check a few things. So one prediction of this model, if you let it run, is that if people don't pay much attention to their personal dissonance, then the final distribution of personal beliefs, they go from -1 to 1, in that group, in that sample, will be centered around 0 and will be kind of, okay, nobody really cares. There's some kind of normalish distribution around it. Kind of, okay. But then if people start paying attention to that personal dissonance, then some will update in some way, depending on the small initial conditions, some in another way, and you'll get a polarized group. And this is actually not a new prediction of this model. Any kind of statistical physics model would predict that once you start paying attention, once you start updating, you get actually polarization in the group. But now the question is, do we actually see this in the data? And so here we use our, these 3 questions that I show at the end, those attention questions, and is in particular the importance of personal dissonance. And then it was a scale of 1 to 7, and now you can categorize people in the scale in these 7 groups and see, okay, people who say that they don't much care about whether their beliefs about GM food concord with each other or not, and people who do care. I mean, there is some indication that maybe there is a more bimodal function for those who really, really care. Okay. Now, when it comes to the social dissonance, there is a similar prediction, similar set of predictions, is that if you do not pay much attention to the social dissonance, then you can allow that if you have several friends, you can allow to yourself that you think that they maybe have all different beliefs about this focal topic. So if I don't care much about GM food and I have 5 friends, I don't care much for these 5 friends. Some believe that this is very important, other believes that this is, or they're very for GM food, other are not for GM food, and I'm fine with this. This is not an important thing for me. I can live with these friends having this diversity of opinions. But if this is something that is really important for me to to have everybody aligned, then the prediction is that I will kind of this will affect my perceptions of others. So even if they actually have different opinions, it will please me to think that most of my friends also have similar beliefs about the issue. So in a way, so if I have these 5 friends, I will start thinking, well, they probably all agree with me. Otherwise, this causes me dissonance. They may or may not, but that's the prediction. And so this is what this is the prediction of the model. As a consequence, the variance of social beliefs across my 5 contacts, or I think it was 10 in this case, will be large when we have low attention, but will be low for when we have high attention. And then in the survey data, we can again divide our people in the 7 groups by how much attention they pay to social dissonance, and then actually measure variance of their social beliefs. And then we do see that those who pay less attention, then there is also more variance of social beliefs among their perceived contacts. And those who pay more attention, they have somewhat lower variance. And similarly, how does this happen? Basically, the model predicts is that I will try to perceive everyone as being similar to me. So not only that they are all the same, but they are similar to me. So if I really disagree with GM food, it is easiest cognitively for me to perceive that most of my friends actually agree with me. So that's a low variance between contacts and similarity to me. And this is what we also see here. So, okay, and then there are other such predictions for external dissonance. I will not, it gets boring, but we kind of see, okay, there is something there. Yes.
Just a quick question about this figure here. Is this controlled for actual beliefs of these friends, or is this just the raw data?
This is just raw.
Okay, and then could it not just be that if people care about these issues, they have actually friends who also are more similar?
That's possible. Yeah. So, yeah, that is possible. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all aligned. Yeah. Okay. So now what we can do with this model is we can try to explain, just as an example, we can try to explain polarization and consensus in societies in a somewhat different way than previous models. Usually to explain polarization, you need to have some updating of social network links. But here you can just think of this as, again, how much attention I'm paying to different dissonances in my head. So if you have this, let's say that you have 2 villages and they are initially quite mixed, and some people are red and some blue and some are purple in the middle. What will be our prediction? How will this change over time? Will it stay the same? Will there be polarization within groups? So some will be red and blue in each group, or there will be maybe polarization between groups or consensus. And in our model, this all can be explained by this attention to different dissonances. If there is no attention to any of the dissonances, everything will stay the same. Nobody cares, nobody updates, same. But if you start caring about social and external dissonances, about this external world, then there will be a strong drive to conform to others in the group, and that then creates uniformity within each group. So if, depending on initial condition, this will either become all red and or blue, and sometimes you have red and blue, and sometimes they're both the same color. But then in all other conditions, so there are various other places, there are various other combinations of these dissonances, then we get polarization within groups. Okay, so that's our initial model. But then we were not satisfied. We are still working on it, and you must all be also dissatisfied with various parts of it. For example, the links are not changing either between beliefs or between people. Second thing is, here we made a big assumption, and that is that I can actually perceive the real belief of a person. But in a social context, we are often expressing something else than what we really believe. And there is a whole strategic component here that's not part of this. Then all of this is kind of very dry, right? So, and there is, of course, decades and decades of literature in psychology and sociology and other sciences on describing different kind of social psychological processes. How can we, what is it there? So we're trying to attach attention to this beta, but are there some other ways to have this model integrating all of this literature and using all of this knowledge that's already there rather than somehow developing separately. And then how can we compare predictions? There are so many different models of belief dynamics. I remember when I came to the Santa Fe Institute and realized there are thousands of models of statistical physics. Physicists developed for belief dynamics I never heard of. And so there are many, many, many. And so how can we even start comparing this in a principled way if they're all developed with these different analogies and different frameworks? Can we somehow have some kind of integrative framework? And then how can we measure this? Are there belief? Is this even a good representation? Maybe there is no belief network, maybe this whole wrong analogy. But even if it is, how do we even measure this? It's very difficult. Okay. So first about these adaptive links. So we started to work on that. So we are now focusing on these links in one head. And we are using simple Hebbian-inspired edge updating, basically what fires together, wires together. That's the idea. And here the idea is that if two beliefs are changing consistently in the same direction, there will be a link between them. And so this is represented with this kind of equation. So if I start believing I become more and more left-wing and also start believing that rightists are there to get me, some conspiracy theory, and this is consistently being updated together, then there might be some link, according to this, might occur between the two. So that's this assumption. There are many other ways you can assume this links update. For example, we can just learn from other people that there is a link between two beliefs. Somebody tells me, there is a link between climate change and gray, some kind of secret government trying to control the world. And so I didn't know this before, but now I know. And so that I can learn links like that. So we didn't do that yet in this model. Very simple. It's just this Hebbian learning. And now we can see, okay, what is the difference in prediction of these models? So this is the prediction of a focal belief of a single agent. Now we are just looking at this one agent. There's not even social network here. We're looking at it behaving, assuming that the links between these beliefs are not changing. So this is actually every line is one agent, and there is a number of agents starting randomly between -1 and 1. The temperature is assumed to be low. That means we assume that there is some attention to the dissonance between personal beliefs. And as I showed you before, what we see is that they settle all in one direction. They could also settle in the other end. This is now just a chance of this particular simulation. Okay, and so now what if we have a simulation with adaptive links? So now not only that they can change beliefs, they can also change the links between them. Now we see much more diversity in where they end up. Some go to one end and some go to the other end. So now this was just one simulation. Now across many different simulations, we can see now this difference. These are the simulations for with fixed network. We saw one that was here, but they either go to one end or to the other end. Then for the adaptive links, we see much more variation in the society. So much more heterogeneous focus, which actually maybe it seems more plausible, because yes, there is extremization and so, but many people still hold beliefs in between the two extremes. So it could be that here it's not maybe necessary it's not always that we change beliefs, we just change how they are related, and then we are happier without changing the beliefs. Okay. And now one interesting thing that goes from there is to try to understand what will be the effects of interventions on such belief networks. So let's say that an event happens, or an advertising campaign, or an influencer, or something happens that is strongly affecting this focal belief. And so what happens now? And in the statistical physics framework, this is called external field. This is a node in the network that doesn't change itself, but affects others. That's how it's implemented. Hoppla. And now we can see, okay, what happens if we let these people behave for 100 time steps, then we exert this intervention for 50 time step, and then we let them behave after the intervention is over and see what's the difference. So, So this is now with a single agent, with a fixed network. Every line is again a single agent. And so they are, first they polarize to one end, then there is an intervention, they all listen to the intervention, and most of them stay there. It's a perfect perfect world for an advertiser, everybody changes their mind and stays so, or for a science communicator or whatever. But this we know that doesn't work. So here with adaptive links, we get a little bit different picture, and this is that some people actually do not change or even come back. Now we can, so that the intervention is less successful. And this is now intervention of the highest intensity. Everybody sees it, it affects everyone. So this is the kind of the best case scenario. And so we can see here that in this adaptive belief network, we can look at three types of agents. One is this compliant agent. This is the agent that had one belief and then with the intervention changed their mind and it stayed there. Yeah.
Is this a plausible belief idea that the focal belief changes with the interaction as such?
Well, I mean, that's what we hope when we have any advertisement or when we try to convince people that vaccinations are good, that they should recycle. All of that, we are trying to change that belief. And occasionally we are successful, but not so often. And so why is it, and especially why do backlash effects occur? That's the whole thing. I don't have an answer, but it seems that it is fruitful to think of this, that people actually, what they do is that they rearrange how they believe about things, what they believe, how they relate their different beliefs. And in that way, avoid feeling the dissonance of not updating their beliefs. So, some real authority is telling me something that I disagreed with. I could do something, I could rearrange it. I could maybe make this belief less important to me, somehow disconnect it from the overall, or connect it even better with others. So this is now work in progress. This is what we are trying to do. We are trying to see what is the difference between those who stay and those who temporarily during the intervention change their mind. You're like, yeah, but then you go away and then they change their mind back. Or even these resistant ones who they just stay and they never change their mind. So there are some differences here, but that's a work in progress. But we are thinking that wouldn't that be amazing if we can predict what are some differences, initial differences in belief networks of people who are amenable to change and who are less amenable to change. And then that would enable, what are the structural network properties and the differences in those between people who change or more, or between beliefs that are more or less amenable to change? Because if you knew that, then we don't have to then use the redescription such as, oh, they will never change their mind, they're so leftist, or they're so religious, or so. This is just a redescription. We don't know why is this so important, right? But if we could explain the structure, then we can say, oh, look, this is a belief that's very central to this person, or this person in general has a very tight or some particular network structure that's really difficult to change with this kind of intervention. Then of course, it can be misused. And once you know that, then maybe you know how you can kind of attack different belief networks, like people study terrorist networks or how to make power grids more resilient. One could do it in a similar way, but of course, this is the best we can do as scientists are to understand this and put it out there so that everybody can be vigilant about their own belief networks. But I think it's a very powerful idea if we get it. Maybe there's nothing there. Yeah.
Clarification question. In the simulation that you showed now, are there any interactions between people? Or is it only the interventions affects my beliefs?
Yeah, so I think we spoke and I said, so the focal beliefs are related.
Yeah.
Yes, there is some interaction.
I was thinking, I remember a long time ago we had this discussion with some people on Spotify where they said that some people are really resistant to the recommendations that they make. So, so on Spotify, they would like to convince people, or they would like to provide recommendations that somehow it changes what they listen to, because they try to have those users stay longer on the platform. But they have this challenge of some people are quite resistant to being influenced by recommender systems. And then we discussed some ideas, okay, maybe those people are resistant to the intervention itself, but they're susceptible to social influence. So then it could be that so long as a certain sufficient number of people are susceptible to the intervention, they can then spread that to the rest. So I'm wondering if that interaction is that a part of the model?
Not of this, but that would be the next step, because now we are just modeling this personal dissonance, but that would be then, okay, let's introduce also the social dissonance. And maybe basically when we feel social dissonance, and that in our model that updates your social beliefs. social beliefs are also related to your personal beliefs. So eventually, through that route, they exert influence and actually, indirectly, eventually will change your personal beliefs as well. So that's how it would be. And so we'll try to reduce the social distance. That would change your perception of what other people believe, and that would then affect your focus.
I see. Yeah.
Okay, so this is this basic model. As you can see, there's so much still to do. Maybe it's fruitful. Let's see. Okay, this is now a little bit bigger model, which introduced an expressed belief. So this is all work from our lab and related people. Okay. So I mean, it looks big, but you see, this is our square. That's our personal belief, and this is our social beliefs. This is all one person. This is person A, and they're related to persons B and C. So this person has similar personal beliefs and social belief that also has expressed beliefs. So the person does not perceive anymore the other person's directly their personal beliefs. It perceives the expressed belief of the person. That is what's seen to the others. And so if you just look at this person, this person has a personal belief. Nobody knows these beliefs but the person. And they express this belief to others, to the world in this. And then it has also this perceived social beliefs of others that are regulated by the expressed beliefs of others, if that makes sense. There is just this basically one more node. But we also assume these directed links that now can be actually linked to many interesting processes that you recognize maybe from dusty textbooks on attitudes and beliefs and social dynamic, which I will go now quickly one by one. And of course, the model is very big. Now we can think of attention to any of these links separately, right? Any of these parts. Before we had these attentions to three kinds of dissonance. But now we can have even more. So it quickly explodes. So I guess in practice, one can just cut off part of the model that one needs. But this model is more kind of a theoretical framework which has two functions. One is to show where do these different psychological, sociological concepts fit. And the other is to serve as a highest level of possible range of nested level models of belief dynamics that are cut-off versions of this, which can then enable comparison of these models, which I'll show next. Okay, so just to guide you through this process. So here is this part where now we have our square, our personal belief. There are many, now we call them context effect. These are various other personal beliefs one has, or maybe some external fields, all of that is here. We also introduced this link of inertia, where you're maybe less likely to change your personal belief if you hold it for a while. Self-loop, okay. So that's one. And the other is this link between personal belief and social belief. This is this process of ego projection that is often mentioned in psychology. So I kind of want to believe that other people believe what I do. It just makes me feel better. It's just nicer. I don't have to bother with changing this to doing anything here. It's fine. Everything is in accord. And the other hand, what I believe, I perceive other people believe, social influence on my own personal belief. Then there is this validity link. We just couldn't find a better name for it, but this is basically how expressed beliefs of others affect one's social beliefs. As I said, there are many things that can affect this. I mean, one is, do this person even expresses their beliefs at all? So if they're not expressing, I don't know. But also whether I have maybe some motivation to not hear something that's not in line with my perceived belief of that person. You know, I have a partner and a friend that somehow say occasionally some things that you don't really agree with, but you just don't want to hear it. You just don't want to update your social belief about your favorite uncle or something. Yeah, maybe they're a bit anti-vax, but okay, it's fine. Okay, and then there's this link between social beliefs and expressed beliefs, and this is now where the process of conformity comes in, because I will express my expressed beliefs will be affected by what I perceive other people believe. Okay, so this is this whole model, and now this is an interesting thing that encompasses many different other models of belief dynamics. So you can, maybe you heard about water model, a very simple model, belief updating. Well, that's just a part of this model where this link is infinity. It's basically the same thing. There is no difference between social beliefs and expressed beliefs, and so on. And so then you can get a voter model. So now you can study this larger model and compare it with this nested version, and statistically see what predicts better certain trends. An easy model. This is now in a different tradition of statistical physics. Now you have some probabilistic updating of beliefs, but in essence, it's very similar to the voter model. Again, you can do a similar thing. Or the Groot model, depending from your discipline you are, it's very simple models, but again, it's if you kind of remove some links and keep others, you'll get the Groot and other versions. And so you can get all of these different models can be more or less implemented in this generalized framework, which we find, okay, nice. That is promising. So future work will need to show how useful this is. Okay, so there was that extension. Yes.
So just to make sure I understand, so we're focusing, as you said, on a focal belief. So we're not bringing in my belief about another person's network of beliefs.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, yes, you could. So far in all of our simulations, we were just, the links were always between only to the focal belief of the other person. But you can explode it to all the other beliefs, which just didn't go there.
And then, of course, some of these paths are kind of meta beliefs, right? Like my belief about a person's authenticity would be part of the thing that I have social beliefs about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point. Yeah, we didn't think of that, but yes, you could.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure what's in and what's out.
Point, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we didn't even think about it, but you could have beliefs about those things.
Yeah.
And when trying to maybe influence this person or try to predict this person.
Because that starts to push it into the area of sort of like gossip and reputation kind of research, right? Where do I believe that this person is authentically representing what they believe?
Okay.
Right. And this could be actually really key when we get into questions about how links form and dissolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay. But I'm not trying to like question the whole framework. I'm just trying to understand.
Very good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Could that be also one of the beliefs how much they value they become one of the EP?
I think it actually does. It's very reasonable as well.
And this just brings me back. There was this also coming, I think, from physicists. I don't know if they were statistical physicists, but they had this, what they call the Axelrod Schelling model, which was an agent-based model. But one of their iterations of this model had this set of arbitrary cultural characteristics that each agent possessed. But one of those cultural characteristics was how much you care about other people's cultural characteristics.
Oh, okay.
And then they implemented this in a model. So this is me just kind of a bit of a tangent, but I don't want to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay. This is I'm ending the modeling part. You can ask questions later. But any burning questions? Okay. Now is this whole thing. Okay, how do you measure these belief networks? And then once we have that, then we can ask is this conceptualization of network even useful to actually predict intervene? This is now theoretical. And so how do we measure belief networks? Well, it's the problem. Remember what I showed you before? It was very crude, but that's how it was usually done. You do this survey, you say, okay, there are 12 things that people should care about when thinking about GM food. I'll ask them about these 12 things. Like, is it good for a country? Is it natural? Is it good for children? These kinds of things. And then people will give an answer from 1 to 7. And then I cannot do a network on the individual level. It's just one time only. But I do it on the collective level. So I have 100 people. I calculate correlations. I get this net. And of course, that's a problem in many ways. So first, it's a predefined set of beliefs. People maybe never thought if this is good for children or is this good for a country. Maybe just thought about natural, but they will give me an answer. If you ask people in a survey, they'll give you an answer. So it will seem like everybody has these 12 beliefs, but maybe people have only 2, or maybe somebody has 24. And we'll just never know with this kind of stuff. And then you know how it is. Whoever wanted to do a survey experiment, and you ask people in wave 1 what they think, then you give them some intervention, ask in wave 2. And it's usually doomed. I did many of these. It's usually very few people actually change their mind because once they say something on a scale from 1 to 7, they'll say it another time, plus minus 1. It's like very difficult. you're basically intervening on them by even asking them a question that maybe they didn't even think about. Now you ask them, temperature dropped, dissonances have been rearranged, this is a new person, and so how do we avoid this intervention basically? And then of course, how do we do individual belief networks? Because yeah, collective networks, fine. Maybe for some things we have pretty similar collective belief networks like Swedes, how to celebrate Christmas and what order to watch stuff on TV now for New Year's Eve. But other things are, we probably have very different individual belief, and this is belief networks, and this is what's interesting. And so how this has been done by, for example, in the Brandt lab and some other, of course, and also in a lot of work on semantic networks in psychology, is that you ask pairwise comparisons between different sets of concepts. And then you basically each of these pairwise comparisons is a link. But the problem is that now you're asking about links that maybe were never there, but people will answer, they will give you something. And so you're basically changing this network as you measure it. So we are kind of trying to see how far we can get if indirectly people just behave, they give some text, they tell you something, and you never kind of really probe them very little, and then see how much you can get. And so obviously there's tons of comment data, tons of online data, including these comments that people leave on different websites. And so we got our hands on, this is led by Sung Woong and Kreshu and some other people that are these wizards for these large amounts of text. And so we came across this large collection of comments to online news articles, to 5 and many other, but these are 5 news sites from left to right. Mother Jones is very left, Atlantic, The Hill, Breitbart, Gateway Pundit, super right. And this is like you have an article, and then after the article, you have this comment section. So people say all kinds of things. And the thing is that all of them were powered by the same platform, which was called Discuss. And Discuss also has hundreds of others. Moderators can just use it to power their comment section. And they have an API, and it's all open. And then these people, when they comment, they sign consent. You can use my data. And so you can basically download these comments. And they're all identified by these kinds of IDs that they're not related to their social media data. So we feel pretty fine about using those. And of course, we don't really look at their identity. What you can do is to look at this one person, and sometimes they're there for years commenting. So you can get years of somebody's comments about various issues. And of course, the database has all kinds of problems. Like this is always related to the particular news article with some kind of, we are trying to ignore so far. But basically, there's a lot of this relationship to particular news and events that are happening. Okay, and so we have these articles, and below them are these comments, and we put it all in. We did various things with it, but in the latest version, we do BERT topic, which is on BERT embeddings, a topic model, and then we get some couple of hundred topics that people discuss. We also do the same for articles. And now we can have a topic network. So each of these topics is represented as a vector, as an embedding, which is it's just the average of embeddings of all comments that were classified as that topic in a particular month. So first we discover topics across all 10 years or whatever of data that we have. Then for each month, we see which comments are classified within that topic. We average their embeddings. Everybody has the embedding of 384. And now we have the average vector. That's the topic for that month. Now we can start seeing how the topic of abortion, for example, changes over time. And also we can correlate these vectors and get some kind of semantic similarity between these different topics. And okay, so this is now the network of all topics. You can look at them over time, or you can see how a particular focal topic like climate change is related to other topics in a particular month. So Mother Johnson, June 2018, climate was related to nuclear energy, lead, economy, farmers, GMO, malaria, science, and Koch brothers, and I'm not sure what this strongman is. And then on Breitbart, climate, also the color is whether they were more or less angry. So they're more angry about the whole climate change discussion. They related to natural disaster, to science, to Al Gore, to energy, to globalists, to that, and some political events of that time. Okay, so you can look at that. You can also look at abortion. You can look at many of these different things. And now you can also do, this is what the first author of this paper, Sun Woong Han, was doing. He was basically doing the whole model of how it might be that events from outside, as reflected in the articles that are posted on these networks, are reflected in the comment network, and how then how this is then updated over time. And then one can kind of, it's not a digital twin because it's much simpler, but now if you have this system and some idea how it might change, now you can start thinking, okay, how do different editorial decisions affect these comment networks? How do, I don't know, trolls and hate speech affect these networks? You can do these kind of experiments. So that's one way to look at it. Anyhow, this was now all on the collective level. How am I with time?
It's 1 hour now.
Aha,
Maybe we wrap up in
maybe I'll be done in 10 minutes. So, but now we're interested in individual belief networks. As I said, some of these people are there for a long time. There are some long users. We were looking now at the section, so we have data until 23, but unfortunately the two left-wing side, Mother Jones and Atlantic, they stopped their comment section in 2018 because they wanted to moderate, it's expensive to moderate, so they just block it. So now we only have right-wing sides. So if you want to compare these sides, we need to go in this period, 2014 to 18. And then we can look at, okay, who are some really long users who commented to more than 300 articles, who have more than 5 comments per month. And then we selected 25 users in 3 platforms, one were on the left, one in the middle, the hill is by the middle, and Breitbart on the right. And so we have a bunch of these comments. And so now we can, then there is a whole LLM type. And now we use LLMs in the last year to detect not only topics. So the problem that we had with this bird topic, so we detect the topic, but we still don't know what people actually think about the topic. So we were hoping, well, if we just calculate the sentiment of this topic, that showed more or less angry, then we'll get what is the opinion about it. But it's not the case. People can be angry about abortion, whether they agree with it or not. But now with LLMs, we can get stances, which is actually, or the best guess of an LLM, what does the person actually, do they agree with abortion or they don't disagree with abortion? And so now we're doing this. Then we also have a set of coders that validated this. Okay, so this goes on. And so now we extracted a certain number of topics, started from those extracted by bird topic, but also others that we thought were important. So we have all of these topics, abortion, military, Joe Biden, MAGA, economy is good, Supreme Court, vegetarians, all of these topics. And then we use a prompt to extract this. And then we compare many, or not we, it's Daniele Barolo, the first author of this paper, and absolute amazing everything, computational social science. And so he compares different models and finds some satisfying one that uses Claude 4 and does the confusion matrix. I will go already, kind of we convince ourselves that it's relatively fine. And now we are starting to look at this individual belief networks. I just wanted to show you. Let's see how this looks, because I find it like so super cool. I just want to quit everything and just look at them. So here is this one user. Maybe, I don't know, this one doesn't matter really. This is one person over these 5 years, and this is now beliefs of this person throughout all of this time. And now if you click here, this is now, green is positive belief, positive stance about the topic, purple is negative stance about the topic. Then there are some black ones, everything is just there but not discussed. And the white is neutral, the red links are negative, blue links are positive. And now we can see, okay, now we can see also the context, like what are actually the comments that this person had about Trump and how did LLM actually interpret it and whether it gave plus or minus to this topic and all of that. But now we can look at this and there's so many interesting things, like we can see how this network develops over time. One just thing, and that's what we are working on now. So when it might be next time or when you come to Vienna, I can tell you more. But this is what's interesting. Look at this. This is a typical structure of a belief network of a Breitbart person. So they're usually angry about many things. So this person is angry about Hillary and Barack and media and Democrats. But they're happy about Trump. They always have this positive thing. So let's see, just a random, another one. Okay, so this one is maybe a little bit different. This one has a lot of negative things, and it has some of these, but it's also it's positive related to military crime is on the rise, terrorism, and so on. Then this one is another example of this. Okay, negative and positive here, and so on. And I don't know, like one more. Anyhow, so just by random clicking around this, you see that this is very often so that you have a clear negative is a clearly positive thing. But now if you look at these poor people from the left, they are angry about things, but they don't have one belief to kind of counteract all of them. They're angry about Trump and Republicans, but then, you know, this one likes Barack Obama and Hillary and like people, and this one, this is a person who is also angry about many things. This one also like guns, okay. And then finally, this is a person that really hates Trump, but kind of likes many things. Yeah, let's have this one more. And this is a person also. So, and kind of in general, what qualitative observation is that these people on the right oftentimes will have counter. And this happens after Trump descends the escalator in 2015. We can also look at this, how this develop over time. And so they're very similar. So they're all angry about something and kind of positive about a few things, but there is no central thing. Once Trump shows, it kind of unites. There's all the negativity I have ever felt is now counteracted by this figure. And it's really interesting. I think something is probably there to look at.
What happens when he dies?
Exactly. What happens, yeah.
It's cool.
Hello.
Can I ask one question? So this is throughout all the 5 years of the follow-up?
Yeah.
And is there anything one of the nodes they probably change over time?
You mean that the stances change?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I'll stop looking. I know I don't have time.
No.
Anyhow, so we can look at this now.
Yeah.
And this is we started to look at this. Now you can look for each individual how much they talk about different topics over time. So these are all these little bulbs, and this is how much they talk about this topic. So you see that some topics show up, some topics go away. Some stances, most of the stances stay the same, but occasionally some stances change, like economy is good or not. And depends a little bit who is in power. There is some inclinations related to like voting processes, is fair or is not fair, this kind of stuff. And then edges come and go. Okay, the thing is that, so we'll see that. And we are hoping that now this is on the 75 heaviest users that comment all the time, those must be quite extreme and special people. We are hoping that once we start analyzing these less frequent users, that maybe we'll get some more change or more interesting things. And my last thing, I just wanted to praise also Victor Miller-Poulsen, who is developing a super cool method for extracting narratives. So instead of survey questions, we just ask people, what do you think about an issue? So not imputing like what is 1 to 7 on a certain belief, but talking. And now, as you all know, so with LLMs, we can interview a person. So usually here we are interested in meat consumption. They start with one question that is the same for everyone. And then the LLM has the instruction to ask up to 10 questions to investigate 3 or 4 particular aspects of meat consumption, like in the most open way possible. And so people talk and talk. Here they even talk aloud. People like to talk. It's really nice. There is a difference between them writing and talking. It's lovely. And so you get all this open-ended data. Then you can use LLM to extract the things that people were discussing. And then people rate, was this accurate? Not accurate. Well, and then we do this canvas thing. So now all these beliefs or these things that they show up as these circles, so then people can move them around. And let's see, like this. This is just one of them. So they can move them around, they can put links between them, and then you get some ideal belief networks. And that's still something that we are perfecting. And now I can start putting these different links in there. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Oops, sorry. And then very suddenly, then we still do pairwise comparison just to compare with other different methods. And also you can use LLM to construct a network of a person. We want to see this spot because that would be something that would be cool. Like if we can convince ourselves that LLM can actually extract a belief network from the narratives. Oh, then we can analyze all kinds of texts. So far, we don't have much evidence. I mean, the tool is still, people don't understand it well. They produce some networks. I mean, they're fine, they're happy with this. And there's obviously something there. It's not all random. They produce these kinds of networks. But then when we ask the LLM to reproduce, there's quite some differences because the thing is like, what does LLM consider to be semantically similar does not need to be related in person's heads. So we are still working on that. But that would be the next frontier of this research. And this is where I wanted to end. The big picture is this, as you were mentioning, we are actually, the whole group is, I don't know what to do. The whole group is studying collective adaptation, which is, the idea is which is more a general question. That's how our groups develop or restructure over time, how we change also the cognitions we use in our group decision-making as we face different problems. And the observation is that we do all naturally that over time. Maybe among all animal species, we are the most flexible in the way we are now here in this grouping. At lunch, we were in different grouping. At every of these structures, we are also changing the way we communicate, we make decisions. It's really very flexible and also highly nuanced and usually gets done. But sometimes it fails and we want to understand why. And the whole issue of beliefs here is that they are part of this kind of underlying complex system that is contributing. There are some cognitions, there are some social structures, networks, institutions. There are various problems we are facing. All of this is changing over time. We want to be able to somehow model it. And beliefs are obviously a big part of this individual cognitions. That's our group. That's our building, our Rothschild Palace. Come and visit us. And thank you very much.